The home is supposed to be the safest place we know. For many of us, it's the only place we know where we truly feel protected, at ease, sheltered from the tumultuous world on the outside. So what happens when the dangers of the outside manages to creep inside, and our safe space is invaded by some unwelcomed force? The stories you are about to hear, in one way or another, all relate to this question. But before we get into today's stories, there is something else I would like to tell you first. If nothing else, it will serve as a reminder to always lock your doors and shut your windows. This particular cautionary tale takes place in Pittsburgh. After hearing some strange noises coming from his ceiling late at night, Jerome Kennedy installed several hidden cameras in his home to solve the seemingly mundane mystery. What he found when reviewing the footage is truly the stuff of nightmares. The footage shows a man crawling through Kennedy's narrow attic space. The man turned out to be Kennedy's neighbor, Robert Havria, and he was later charged with burglary, stalking, and criminal trespassing. Kennedy also claimed that Havria had been spying on him and his infant daughter during the night. This type of story is surprisingly not terribly uncommon. Granted, there could be a perfectly reasonable explanation to what exactly Havria was doing in Kennedy's attic, but if there is any lesson to be learned from this, it's that just because you've locked the door doesn't mean that someone can't find another way in. This happened a long time ago when I was younger. I have really bad memory. This is just me recounting the memory to the best of my ability. I also want to preface this story by saying that this takes place somewhere in Indonesia, where it's more common to have maids in your household. When I was younger, I had a strong relationship with my extended family. To me, that was normal. I was particularly close with my grandaunt's family, calling her Grandaunt Sheila, whose daughters were like my big sisters. Being the eldest child, I liked being babied by them since I was always expected to be the big sister for my little brother. This is important for later. I was maybe 11 years old, or younger. Neither my parents or I can remember exactly when it happened. I just want to say, as a kid, I loved milk. I still do, though I tend to stick with skim milk now. When I was younger, I had a favorite local brand that had the usual strawberry flavor. The brand was called Ultra Milk. It always seemed cool to me that I was drinking something pink. Unbeknownst to my parents, a gift basket had showed up to our doorsteps, and the maid had taken the gift, thinking it was a present from one of my mother's friends. My parents had even seen the gift basket and didn't think much of it. It was full of fruits, sweets, etc., the usual kind you would send to someone, maybe on a special occasion. It should have been weird that there wasn't a special occasion. But another weird part was that usually gift baskets had a card, or something to indicate who sent it. But there was no indication from who it came from, but the maids had overlooked it and my parents didn't notice at the time. They had assumed the head maid had checked it through. She didn't. In the gift basket, there was a tiny carton of my favorite milk, even strawberry flavored. I had lessons with a tutor, and oftentimes The maid accompanying me to the lesson would bring me snacks or food since the tutoring would take a few hours. I was at my tutor's house and she was teaching me about the homework I got today when I got thirsty and I got my carton of milk to take a sip out of it. I was ready to take a sip of the extremely sweet, artificially flavored strawberry milk goodness, but something was wrong. It didn't taste right. I don't remember what it did taste like, but I knew that it was wrong. I remember describing to my parents that it felt like I licked the bottom of a foot of a metal-framed chair I had in my room at my desk. It just tasted awful. Thinking that maybe it was spoiled. My mum had warned me about drinking spoiled milk and how it can really upset your stomach. I immediately, without swallowing, grabbed some tissues at the table and spat out the mouthful into the tissue, and was surprised to see sort of weird metallic beads in it. Like metal, but it was liquid. I have never seen anything like it, and I was confused. My tutor was even more confused and horrified that I had just spat out a strange metallic substance. I didn't really understand what was going on, but my tutor asked to take the carton of milk I had tried to drink from and told me to just continue working while she went to investigate. Apparently, my tutor and her head maid went outside and poured a bit more of the milk into a tissue, and there were more of this weird metallic liquid in there. She asked me if I had drank any of it, and I told her that maybe I took a sip and swallowed before I realized that something bad was in there. After that, my tutor apparently called my mother and told her that I had been possibly poisoned. I went home without finishing my lesson, becoming slightly concerned that maybe something was wrong. I went home and I don't really remember what happened after that. There wasn't a poison center in my country, and no emergency services that would really respond, so my parents took me to a doctor to have blood work done. I remember being pulled out of school. My mum wanted me to stay home for the next few days, which was great for me. No one told me the severity of the situation, and my mum just told me that she wanted me to chill at home for a while. So I did. I stayed home and watched Avatar, The Last Airbender on DVD while my parents were fretting over the idea that I might have been poisoned by Mercury. The gift basket had already been taken apart and stored to eat for later. It was all reassembled, and my parents tried to take it to the police, but they really couldn't do anything since we literally had no leads on where this gift basket came from, since it had no card, and the police really couldn't care less about our situation. I don't really know what happened, other than I was pretty cool with staying home and playing. My life at home wasn't perfect. Got some issues with my parents, but they were really nice to me during this time, so I enjoyed it a lot, since I didn't really understand. I think my parents kept a lot of things from me to keep me from getting scared. My parents even took me overseas to Singapore, taking the liquid found in the carton with them in a tin to show the doctors there, where I got tested some more and didn't seem to have any signs of poisoning. I didn't swallow enough of it. I'm not sure if it really was mercury. No one has ever told me. But at the end of the day, everyone was glad that I didn't drink enough of it to get affected by whatever it was. Now, to get into the suspect part. My parents later told me that they had a sneaking suspicion that Grandaunt Sheila was the one who tried to poison me. I didn't know this at the time, but around the time of this incident, Grandaunt Sheila was found to have stolen gold and jewellery from my parents' store for years, worth thousands. My parents were furious and wanted to report her to the authorities, but my grandma loved her too much and instead just cut contact with her. Since then, Grandaunt Sheila had seemed to want to enact vengeance over being caught and has been trying to get back at us. My mum had warned me that I shouldn't play with the big sisters, Grandaunt Sheila's daughters, anymore since they did something very bad, and to never get into a car with them if they showed up at my school. But it didn't click in my mind until now. Thinking back, Grandaunt Sheila was close enough to me to know that I loved drinking strawberry milk, and maybe tried to hurt my family, even if it meant hurting her grandniece. We could never confirm if it was her, but Grandaunt Sheila has continued to be a thorn in my family's side for years now. Though my parents have learned a lesson and ensured that whenever we received a gift basket, there had to be a name on it. My grandmother doesn't believe her sister did it though, but my parents' family believe that she was responsible. But we had no proof other than her horrible character. We've received weird gifts, like black seeds and hair, that was supposedly some sort of witchcraft thing. Witchcraft and sorcery is a popular thing in Indonesia. We assumed that this was all from Grandaunt Sheila, who still lived in the same country as us. It only made sense. My parents never bought me the Ultra Milk brand again, which I was okay with. I was reminded of this story while drinking strawberry milk the other day. Different brand. I'm no longer living in Indonesia, not in the same country as Grandaunt Sheila. To Grandaunt Sheila, or whoever was the one who spiked a carton of strawberry milk to poison an 11-year-old girl, let's not meet. I was 14 years old when I had to go live with my grandparents. I had to live with them because my sister was in college and my parents were getting a divorce. They lived in this old bungalow-type house. It was one story and we had stairs that immediately goes up to the attic. An attic which no one really uses. We just put stuff in there. It's too hot and stuffy up there anyway. The sole window up there didn't really help. The attic had old creaky wooden floors that I remember that I had to polish with a coconut shell, because that's how we do it here in the Philippines. Anyways, my room was near the stairs leading up to the attic. You would open my door, then face right, and the stairs would be right there. I hated it. Every time I left my room, I would expect to see something crawling down from the attic. One night, my grandparents had to pick up my aunt's family from the airport. Because of the hellish traffic here, they had to leave at 7 p.m. and their expected arrival back home would be at 5 a.m. at the earliest. So, a 14-year-old girl would be alone at home the whole time. I told them I would be safe here. We live in a gated community. We got tons of guard dogs. Everything will be okay. Or so I thought. Before they left, we already had dinner, so I was stuck with cleaning the dishes and all. As I was doing that, I could hear the dogs barking outside. I didn't really think much of it, because the dogs always do that. When I finished cleaning up after dinner, I immediately had to lock every door and windows and turn all the lights off before heading to bed. When I entered my room, the lights were on and it looked normal. My anime posters were on the wall. My closet was untouched. My bed was next to my barred, tinted windows. We had to tint them because I was on the first floor, and my grandparents wanted to make sure no one would peep in a young girl's room. They were barred too, because my uncle, whose room this used to be, always escaped through there to go to parties. This was my grandparents' solution to that. Nothing was out of place to alarm me. Everything was normal. Until I turned the lights off. As soon as I turned the lights off, a silhouette of a man was illuminated by the street lights outside. He looked like he had thick, curly hair and a skinny build. I thought I was having hallucinations, so I turned the lights on again, and he was gone. I sighed in relief. I was just tricking myself, I guess, or something else was casting the shadow. I double-locked my door just to be safe, one with the doorknob lock and one of those door latches type locks, then tucked myself in. It was hard to fall asleep when a lot of dogs were barking outside. I was finally falling asleep when I heard something above me moving. Something in the attic. I tried to convince myself it was just my mind playing tricks on me. I hugged my pillow. It's just rats, I said to myself. My heart sank when I heard them hurriedly go down the stairs and stop at the bottom. I covered myself with my blanket and I waited for something. I was also wishing that my parents had given me a phone to use at a time like this, but I only waited, breathing heavily. Suddenly, I heard my doorknob being gently fiddled. I wanted to vomit when I heard a click, followed by a quiet turn of the knob. The knob turned, but it didn't budge. When they noticed, they tried to push it. By now, I had finally stood up, shaking. I was a kid, home alone with no phone, no means of defense. All that was saving me was this thick door. I softly pushed my body up against the door and locked everything up again. I didn't want to make sound. I didn't want to scream. I didn't want him to know I was there. I don't know why he stopped, but he did. I didn't go back to bed. I just sat there on the floor, waiting. It felt like forever. I heard footsteps go up the stairs, but I still sat there. I saw something move in the corner of my eye. There, out the window. The shadow was back. I forced myself not to look. All I could think of was, thank God, my windows were barred. I don't remember what happened after that. I think I fell asleep, or I was too scared to even think straight. I just remember the next day when my family and I were finally having breakfast. I casually brought it up. Grandfather, I think I heard footsteps in the attic last night. My grandmother scoffed. It's probably rats. I never brought it up again. I didn't want them to worry. But I do know this. Our dogs were caged up near the gate and were far from my room, so they wouldn't have seen anything. The only dogs who were near my room were the neighbors. Also, there was nothing outside my window that could cast a shadow that looked like a man. Lastly, the attic window was open.